Welcome to Unforbidden Truth. I'm Andrew. Today I'll be speaking with Steven Nigg. Steven Nigg was a federal prisoner whose case became widely known after he attacked former Subway spokesperson Jared Fogle in prison in 2016. He was serving time at FCI Inglewood in Colorado. He ambushed Fogle in the recreation yard, leaving him with facial injuries and a bloody nose. Reports indicated that his motives stemmed from resentment towards sex offenders in general and anger at what he saw as Fogle receiving leniency and protection inside the prison system. As a result of the incident, he spent about 10 days in solitary confinement. Before this, he already had a long criminal history. He was serving a 15-year prison sentence under the Federal Armed Career Criminal Act after being convicted on a weapons charge, with the enhanced penalty triggered by prior felony convictions dating back decades. His earlier record included violent robberies in the 1970s, such as targeting a motel clerk and convenience stores. While the Fogle attack brought him into the spotlight, his case underscores how habitual offenders with long records often face mandatory minimum sentences under federal law. Steven Nigg was released from prison in 2023. This interview was recorded not long after he was released from prison. Here's my conversation with Steven Nigg about what his experience was like in the SHU in federal prison. So I want to talk about the SHU, which is the Special Housing Unit. Is that correct? Is that what that stands for?
Yes, special housing unit.
Can you tell me a little bit about what the SHU is and what it's implemented for, and then give me some of your personal experiences from when you were housed back there?
Well, anybody goes to the SHU for disciplinary reasons. Like for me, every time I smash a child molester, I would go to the SHU. It's also made for people who need protection. Like sometimes child molesters would go there, or somebody who was a rat informed on another prisoner would have to go to the SHU for protection. And it would keep everybody separate, of course. And you would be in your cell 23 hours a day. Sometimes on the weekends it's 24. So you actually get 3 to 5 hours out of the cell. And when you're out for exercise period, you're in just a big cage. So you're not really, it's not much different than a cell. And that's it. You're just locked in that cell constantly. And they just started in, I think it was 2018. It's a law in the SHU now to put 2 people to a cell. The reason they made that law is because there were so many suicides. And they figured, well, if you put somebody else in there for it, he can't commit suicide, or the other guy would talk you out of it. But that just showed how bad it was. They didn't do nothing to correct the problem of the suicides. They just put somebody in a cell hoping that would prevent you from committing suicide. So, yeah, that's that.
What was your experiences like while housed in the SHU? Do you feel like it kind of sent you into like a spiral when it came to your mental health, or do you feel like you were able to manage, being in the dark a lot of the time and being cut off from the world?
Well, I'm older, so I was able to handle it a little bit easier than the young people. But then back in my young days when I was in the SHU, like in my 20s, it was very difficult. My head was totally screwed up by the time I got out, and they put me right back in the general population, and it makes you paranoid, and you're being around all these people. You kind of go insane and come back. You know, they say you don't know what sanity is until you go insane. You have to lose your mind to find it. Well, a lot of people lose their mind and don't find it. And they just commit more crime and end up back in the SHU again. It's like a revolving door. And you're not learning anything. they're making things worse for you because they don't do nothing with you while we're in there. Now, I've always told everybody, 98% of people who go to prison come out. So you better do something with us to help us while we're in, because we're coming back out to society. Now, going to the SHU is not helping anybody. You want to put us like that and then bring us back into society? We're just going to commit, there's going to be more crimes committed, and they're going to be more violent. Because they're creating this to happen, and they see it happening all the time, but they still put people in the SHU. What I've tried to implement is while we're in the SHU, if we're in there for disciplinary reasons, or if certain prisoners are in there for protection, educate them in some way, for they don't go insane by doing nothing but looking at the ceiling. Educational programs, they stop everything. When you go to SHU, all the programming you were doing when you were in general population is ceased. They just want you to do nothing because they think that's going to keep you out of the SHU because you suffer so much. But the suffering for a lot of people who don't handle it, that's why I say they lose their minds. And they go back general population and right back in the SHU again.
What do you think it is that makes people keep coming back to the SHU while in prison?
Well, for a lot of them, they had problems before they came in. There's a lot of people in prison who really shouldn't be in prison. They should be someplace where they could get psychiatric help, because they already have the problems before they come to prison. Prison didn't give them the problems. What some of it did, but many people come in with the problems. So they act up and they put them in the SHU, not even knowing they had the problems before. And it's never corrected. And as I say, 98% of us prisoners are coming back out to society. And they need to do something with everybody while they have us. But they're not doing that. They're just making the situation worse. You have nothing to do but sit in a cell. Now, if you look at it, COVID, when COVID hit real hard, so many people had to stay in their house, and they got what's called cabin fever. And if you look at it, the divorce rate has skyrocketed because everybody was had to stay in their house, and they couldn't cope with each other that well. And the divorce rate went up when people were during the COVID. Violence went up. I'm sure that you could look that up and see that the violence level went up on the streets during COVID. The divorce rate, people became antisociable. And that's in the streets. When when you're home and you have all the entertainment there, you can leave and come back. And so if that happens that bad during the pandemic, what do you think it's like for people in the SHU? It was 10 times worse than it was for people on the streets and who had to stay home a lot, wear their mask, and scared to go out. Well, it's a lot worse if you're in the SHU. So we have all that problem out here now. Just imagine what it's like for these guys who are going to get out after being in the SHU for so long. Now, some of them are in the SHU for anywhere from 30 days. If it's a simple incident report, you may get 30 days in the SHU. Now, if you smash a child molester, I was in 7 different federal prisons. And in every one, I went to the SHU for smashing a child molester. I did anywhere from 4 months to, I think, 7 months in the shoe. And then they just transfer you after a while if you've been in the shoe too long, because they don't want you back on the yard. They already know that a lot of guys have developed mental problems, so they just ship them on out and let another prison handle it. So I don't know.
Now,
I always compare that to the pandemic.
does every single federal penitentiary have like the shoe in the prison, or are there only certain federal penitentiaries that do have the shoe?
No, every prison has a shoe. And when I was in Beaumont, that's a complex. There's a camp, a low, a medium, and a high. And in the high, they didn't have a shoe, so they would put everybody in the low because they had the biggest shoe there. And it was all Beaumont prisoners, but just different class, from campers all the way to the USP prisoners. But every prison has to have a shoe because they have to have. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, if somebody bursts out in a serious violence or stabs somebody, of course they have to go to the shoe. I'm not saying that. I understood why every time I went to the shoe, I understood why I was going. I just smashed a child molester. That's assault and battery. So they had to put me in a shoe. I'm just saying, while you have us there, don't treat us like animals. Animals in a zoo are treated much better than a human being is in the shoe. They're fed better. They get more time out. They have a bigger area. An animal does in a zoo than we do in the shoe. So how do you think that's not causing mental problems for us?
What are some ways to cope while you're in the shoe to make it easier on yourself until you get out?
Well, they should have, to an extent, they have a psychiatrist or psychologist that goes by and sees how you're doing, but he doesn't have no time. There could be 50 to 100 people in a shoe, and it's just one psychologist. All he does is pass out little puzzles and stuff to try to keep you occupied, and little brochures on how to handle anxiety. That's nothing, but I understand that it's one or two psychologists. What can they do? But they need more psychologists in prison. They have an overabundance of prison guards. They don't even need that many. They need to hire more psychologists and counselors to help with these prisoners. And as I say before, get some type of educational programs for people to occupy their time, keep their minds active. But then that's not. They don't want that because the administration wants you to suffer. Because they think if you suffer, that you won't come back to the shoe. They're not comprehending that the shoe and the suffering is what's making them come back. It's a revolving door. And but they just want you to suffer as hard as much as they can. You get a couple showers a week. You're in, as I say, you're in your cell 23 hours. You have a hard time even getting a book. The only book you could have in the shoe that they have to give you is the Bible. And that has helped a lot of people. Whatever your religion is, Asa true, Christian, Quran, Bible, you get any Bible you want. And that's the only comfort that I've seen in the shoe, is that you have your Bible, so you have something to read, you have your God with you. And that has helped tremendously to a lot of prisoners, including myself.
So if you had the opportunity to speak to the person who runs BOP, especially the shoe program, What might you suggest to them to make the shoe more comfortable or more easy to do time back there in?
Well, basically everything that I've just stated to you, Andrew. And I would plead with them to help us while you have us again. But they know this already. And the top administrators, they know what's going on in the shoe. They know that it isn't working, but there's nothing else that they're trying to implement. You go to shoe, you take away as many privileges as you can, and make that individual suffer. They think that is helping us, and it's gonna. I guess they're trying to break us, and some people it does break, but the people it breaks, that doesn't mean they're gonna just lay down and they're broken in that way. They're mentally broken, and they're becoming more violent because they're mentally broken. And I would just try to explain this to the director of the prisons, but I don't see where if you go in one ear and out the other with them, because I've talked to people when I was in prison and all the shoes I was in to do something that they could see what's going on here. I've talked to the counselors, the psychologists, the priest who comes by once every Sunday. He comes by and hands people reading material in the Bibles, and they all know that too, but their hands are tied because there's nothing they could do, and there's not enough of them. But if the priest and the psychologist tell the top administrators exactly what I've told you just now, and they don't listen to them, they're sure not going to listen to me. I would emphasize once again, 98% of prisoners return to society. Do something with this while you can, because we're going to be right back in your neighborhoods again, and a majority of people in prison are coming out worse than they went in. So what does that tell you? The shoe isn't working. We need to rearrange it and do something for it helps the guys in there, not hurts them. That's about all I can say.
That was my conversation with Steven Nigg. Thank you for listening.